During the 90s, we watched many eras and movements take place while the hip hop industry itself went through many changes and transitions. You had many artists who had their reigns at the top of the game during that time. But once the year 2000 hit, we began to see newer acts and faces that pretty much came out of nowhere, but also dominated in a huge way while at the same time putting on for the respective regions. One of those acts was Nelly. Now, if you can remember during the early 2000s run, as far as when Nelly came into the game, it was something crazy. At one point, nobody was bigger than Nelly. Having your first album go diamond and also being able to put your group on and them going platinum and you just having all this success as far as having all these hit singles, and it was a real big thing. And a lot of people don't know Nelly sold a lot of records in a very short amount of time. As far as his time at the top, I say from the year 2000 to maybe like 2004 or 5, Nelly was definitely unstoppable. And on this video, man, we're gonna look at the musical peak of Nelly, because it went from music, other business ventures, as far as clothing lines, and the film industry, and him getting into owning, being a part of the NBA teams and stuff like that. Like, Nelly was everywhere. Before a lot of people, got to know him as Ashanti's husband, Nelly was definitely him, and he was definitely number one. Let's go. Nelly was born in Austin, Texas, but his family would end up moving to St. Louis while he was still a baby. Although his mother and father would end up divorcing, both did what they could to provide for him while growing up. Nelly would go back and forth from living with his mom and father, but then he would end up being with his mom for good during his teen years. Although Nelly was good at sports like football and baseball, he had the potential to go much further, but he had a different calling. Nelly had his hand in working a few 9 to 5s, but ultimately his way of getting money was through the streets, especially after graduating high school, and he would end up becoming a young father. He knew he couldn't lean on the streets forever and needed the exit plan, and this is when music came into play seriously. Now, although he would form a rap group called the St. Lunatics with his friends while he was still in high school, but he didn't put his full focus into music until the mid-90s, and when the group had an opportunity to build a buzz musically. The group would put out the song Give Me What You Got, which would end up becoming a big local hit before the mainstream fame. The group was trying to get their demo heard by different labels so they could secure a record deal, but yet they wasn't getting any responses. It wouldn't be until the group would end up linking up with Cooler Love, who was at the time the manager for Mace and who was one of the biggest rappers at the time. Once Cooler got the demo of the St. Lunatics, he also tried to shop a deal for them, but they couldn't get anyone to sign them. And that's when Cooler came up with the idea of shopping Nelly as a solo artist, and if they was able to get Nelly a deal, then Nelly hit big, then the St. Lunatics would get put on as well. So that's when they made the decision to shop Nelly as a solo artist. Nelly would go on to record 4 solo songs for a demo. The songs would end up being Country Grammar, aka Hot Shit, EI, Ride With Me, and the group song Battle Up, all produced by the in-house producer J.E. By mid-1999, Nelly would end up getting a deal with Universal Records. After the deal was finalized, Nelly and the group would end up putting together what would be his debut album, Country Grammar. It would take nearly 2 months to get it completed and turned in. Heading into February of 2000 is when Universal would officially release the single known as Country Grammar. By the summer of that same year, you couldn't go anywhere without hearing that song on the radio, or couldn't turn on to MTV, BET, or the box without seeing the video being played. On June 27, 2000, the album known as Country Grammar was officially in stores. The album would sell 235,000 copies in its first week. By October 2000, Universal would end up dropping the second single, EI, and by this time the album would be 3 times platinum. Closing out the year, the album would hit the 5 million mark, and in January of 2001, Nelly would end up performing at the Super Bowl as well, and he will also be nominated for Best Rap Album of the 2001 Grammy Awards. In the month of February, the album's third single, Ride With Me, will be released and will end up topping the charts just like his first 2 singles. Country Grammar would continue to sell more records as the St. Lunatics would finish their debut group album, Free City. The album would be dedicated to their group member, City Spoil, who was also half brothers with Nelly, and he would end up having to do a jail sentence right before the group ended up striking their deal with Universal. The last single from Country Grammar would be the single Batter Up, which also served as a single for the Free City album, along with singles like Midwest Swain and Summer in the City. The Free City album would drop on June 5th of 2001 and would end up selling 200,000 copies in its first week and would be certified platinum within a month of the album's release. By the time Country Grammar would hit the 1-year mark since it was then released, it would be 7 times platinum. I don't even think Universal knew how big Nelly was going to be, and this was something they was definitely not expecting to break a new artist. And for those who don't know, as of today, of 2026, Country Grammar is a certified diamond with sales of over 10 million copies sold. As Nelly and the St. Lunatics was riding high on a huge wave of success, Nelly will also be featured on the smash #1 hit Where the Party At, along with the R&B group Jagged Edge. Nelly will begin working on his second album, Nellyville, in the fall of 2001. And while doing so, he would end up recording a song called #1, which would end up landing on the soundtrack for the movie Training Day. #1 was in heavy rotation on BET and MTV and would do very well on the charts. As far as tours and endorsements, record sales, and many awards, 2001 was a very huge year for Nelly. But the industry was wondering, could he match the same success as his first album? Could he keep the momentum going? Going into 2002, the first single from Nellyville would be Hot In Herre, which was produced by the Neptunes, which would be released in March. By the time the album was released on June 25th, Hot In Herre was the #1 single in 7 different countries, and the first week sales for Nellyville would be over 700,000 copies, and it would end up landing at #1 for 5 weeks in a row. The album would spin 2 more singles, which ended up hitting #1, which would be Dilemma featuring Kelly Rowland and Air Force Ones featuring the St. Lunatics. By the end of 2002, the album would be 6 times platinum, and Nelly was basically untouchable. Heading into 2003, Nelly would launch his own record label, Dirty ENT, which would be distributed through Universal, which it would help launch the solo careers of Murphy Lee, Ali, and Gip, and other local St. Louis talents. He will also be a co-founder of the fashion brand Apple Bottoms, which will end up grossing $60 million within its first 2 years, and it will end up earning over $160 million in total revenue during his time. During the summer of 2003, Nelly and Murphy Lee would team up with Diddy for the smash hit single Shake Your Tail Feather. The single would serve as the single for the Bad Boys 2 soundtrack. The song would end up hitting #1 on the charts and help push the soundtrack to the #1 spot, which it would end up dropping in July 2003, and by October, the soundtrack will be certified platinum. Nelly will also provide the single Issue for the Haunted Mansion soundtrack and also for the remix album, the Dirty Versions album. Also in 2003, Nelly will also earn his first 2 Grammy wins. Heading into 2004, Nelly would decide to drop his 3rd and 4th album on the exact same day. On September 13th, Sweat, which had the singles Flap Your Wings, Tilt Your Head, and Na 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 Na, and the Suit album had singles like My Place, Over and Over, and They Say. Sweat would debut at #2, moving 342,000 units in its first week, while Suit would end up debuting at #1, moving 392,000 units in its first week, both albums end up moving 738,000 units in its first week together, and by mid-2005, Sweat will be end up certified platinum, and Suit will end up certified triple platinum. Nelly will become the first artist since the rock group Guns N' Roses to obtain the #1, 2, and 1 spot on the Billboard 200 charts at the same time. Also, he gained his 3rd Grammy for the Best Rap Performance by a Duo or Group for the song Shake Your Tail Feathers. Heading into 2005, Nelly will also co-star in the movie The Longest Yards with Adam Sandler, Chris Rock, Burt Reynolds, and others. His label Dirty ENT will also be responsible for the movie soundtrack, which the hit single Every Time, both the movie and the soundtrack was successful. By the end of 2005, Nelly will also release the compilation album Sweat Suit, which consists of some old songs and a new song called Grills featuring Jermaine Dupri, Paul Wall, Gip, and Ali. The song would end up going platinum and hit #1 on the charts as well. This will also be around the same time Nelly would end up expanding his business portfolio and would end up joining the ownership group for the expansion franchise for the Charlotte Bobcats. He remained with the franchise until May of 2014 after the franchise adopted the Hornets name following the New Orleans team moving to the Pelicans branding. But after 2005 and 6, the flame that kept Nelly's music brand burning was beginning to fade out, and as the years would continue on and as hip-hop would change into the digital age, new faces were popping up and Nelly wasn't seen as one of the kings of the industry anymore. Now he would continue to tour, drop music, do reality shows and other business ventures, and make hit singles that kept the platinum plaques coming. Nelly dominated during his time at the top, and he took advantage of the spotlight while it was on him. He's responsible for bringing the city of St. Louis to the forefront. He has sold over 50 million records, has a classic catalog of hits that will never get old, and here's the reason why he's able to remain on tour to this day. For those who were old enough to remember when Nelly first came out, I'm pretty sure you remember that anytime you turned on TVs, anytime you turned on the radio or anything like that, you couldn't escape him. And he definitely dominated during his time at the top. So let me know, what's one of your favorite Nelly songs, albums? Have you ever been to a Nelly show during that time, at his time at the top while he was on tour? Let me know some of your favorite Nelly moments, man. For me, I still remember when Country Grammar first hit in 2000, and when new faces like him and Ludacris started to pop up everywhere, you really started to see the change within the industry, as they started to take over and dominate within their own way. But y'all let me know, what was your favorite Nelly album, song, moment, performance? Just let me know in the comments, man. Don't forget to hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe to hit the All Grind Media Network. And I'm your boy Moss, and I'm out.